What's up guys, this is Ultimate Device Vids and iOS 15 is here, and today in this video we're going to be answering the age-old question, how does the latest iOS version impact battery life, and how does that performance compare to the previous iOS version? So we're going to be doing a massive battery drain test comparing iOS 15 to iOS 14.8 on all iPhone generations. And we're going to be sticking with the base model phone from each generation, as including the Pro, Plus, and SE models would just be a little bit too chaotic for this video. So in this video, as you can see, iOS 15 is on the bottom and iOS 14.8 is on the top. And the very same iPhones were used for both iOS version battery drain tests. I first performed this test on iOS 14.8 and then I updated all of these devices to iOS 15 and performed the exact same test again. And a few things before we start: True Tone, Night Shift, and Auto Brightness are disabled on all these devices for both tests. And also the battery health for all the batteries in these devices are quite high, as you can see across the board, and the brightness on all of these devices is as close to the same as I could get. It's particularly difficult to match the brightness of an OLED display to that of an LCD display using the tools that I use, but rest assured, when looking at the OLED iPhone 12 compared to the other LCD devices, you wouldn't be able to perceive any difference in brightness. And also the volume is turned down on all of them. And alright, so let's go ahead and kick things off by turning off the power source that these devices are connected to in both tests, and we'll remove the power cables, and we'll get started with 1 hour of YouTube video streaming. So we're going to load up the very same YouTube video on all devices, and we're going to make sure it's full screen on all devices and that it's set to 1080p quality, and we'll just let it stream for an hour. And checking in after an hour of YouTube video streaming, as you can see, very similar results across the board, with the only difference being the 6S and iPhone 7 falling a little bit behind on iOS 15 in comparison to 14.8. Alright, so next up we're going to head on over to Instagram for 1 hour of looking at stories and posts. We'll be looking at stories for the first 10 minutes, and then for the remainder of the hour we'll just be scrolling through posts. And as I often do, I just want to take a moment to say that there is a ton of factors that contribute to how your battery life is going to be. And of course, I always do my best to control as many variables as possible to get the most accurate results, but there's always going to be little minor factors that throw it off a little bit. So rather than interpreting these videos as super detailed percent point by percent point analysis, you should interpret these tests as just gauging overall battery performance. And alright, so checking in after an hour of Instagram, as you can see, once again, very similar results, with very minor differences between them, as you can see, just a few percent points here or there. So next up, we're going to head on over to Minecraft for 1 hour of gameplay. And since I only have so many fingers, for the first 30 minutes, we're going to interact with the 3 newest devices while leaving the 3 oldest devices with the game running but not interacting with it. And for the second 30 minutes, we'll interact with the 3 oldest devices and leave the game running but not interacting with it on the 3 newest devices. So that way all the devices get the same amount of interactive gameplay versus just standby time in this application. And for whatever reason, towards the end of this hour of Minecraft, the iPhone 6S on iOS 15 freezes up. And I tried closing it, force quitting the application, and the device just would not respond to anything. And if this is a widespread issue, I'm sure it'll be fixed shortly. And we're going to force restart the 6S on iOS 15 so it can resume with the test in just a second. But here are the percentages for the other devices after the hour of Minecraft. And you can see once again very negligible differences between the numbers, with the iPhone 8 and above showing just a slight advantage actually on iOS 15, as you can see, in comparison to 14.8. But again, extremely slight, just a percent or two here or there. So we're going to go ahead and hard reset the iPhone 6S to get it back up and running in the test. So while we reboot the 6S on iOS 15, we're going to move on to 1 hour of web browsing. So we're going to be loading new web pages and scrolling through web pages on apple.com for the first 30 minutes and theverge.com for the second 30 minutes. And you can see when the 6S on 15 comes back up, it's showing at 21%. But anyways, 3 hours and 50 minutes into the test, the 6S on iOS 15 is the first device to die. And just 8 minutes later, the iPhone 6S on iOS 14.8 also dies at 3 hours and 58 minutes in. And checking in after the full hour of web browsing, as you can see, once again, the same trend is continuing, with the iPhone 8 and above showing a tiny little advantage on iOS 15 over 14.8, a little bit more noticeable on the iPhone 12, but still small, while the 7 is listed as doing a little bit better on 14.8. And next up, we're going to head on over to Subway Surfers, and we're going to play the game for 30 minutes. And just like before, for the first half of this 30 minutes, so 15 minutes, I'm going to interact with the 3 newest devices. minutes, while leaving the 3 oldest devices with the app open, and vice versa for the second 15 minutes. And after 30 minutes of Subway Surfers, as you can see here, once again, same trend continuing, very similar results, with the iPhone 7 in both tests just barely hanging on, below 10% for both. So next we're going to head on over to Temple Run for 10 minutes of playing this game. So by now you guys know the drill. For the first half of this 10 minutes, so 5 minutes, we'll interact with the 3 newest devices and the 3 oldest for the second 5 minutes. And towards the end of this 10-minute time period, the iPhone 7 on iOS 15 dies at 4 hours and 42 minutes in. And checking in after Temple Run, as you can see, once again, very similar results across the board. So far it's looking like iOS 15 and iOS 14 are performing very similarly in regards to battery life, of course doing these specific tasks. It all depends on what you're doing on your device, of course. So next we're going to head on over to PUBG for 1 hour of gameplay. And as usual, we're interacting with the 3 newest devices for the first 30 minutes and the 3 oldest devices for the second 30 minutes. And 4 hours and 52 minutes into the test, the iPhone 7 on iOS 14.8 dies. And a little while later, at 5 hours and 10 minutes in, the iPhone 8 on iOS 14.8 dies next. And just 2 minutes later, the iPhone 8 on iOS 15 dies. And 30 minutes into PUBG, I'm going to stop interacting with the 3 newest devices, even though there's no older devices currently still on. This test was designed to accommodate if they were, so that's why we're doing that. But anyways, after a full hour of PUBG, as you can see, checking in, the iPhone XR, 11, and 12 are once again performing pretty similarly. Specifically, the iPhone XR and iPhone 11, again, are just 1% apart, as you can see, for both of these. While the iPhone 12 is 6% points ahead on iOS 15, which is quite interesting. So with the first round of the battery test complete, we're going to head on back to YouTube for another hour of YouTube video streaming. So we're going to load up the very same video again, once again, full screen on all of them, 1080p quality, and we'll stream it for an hour. And 5 hours and 59 minutes into the test, the iPhone XR on iOS 14.8 dies. And 4 minutes later, the iPhone XR on iOS 15 dies next. And alright, with the 11 and 12 being the only one remaining after the full hour of YouTube video streaming, as you can see, the 11s are tied at 7%. And just like last time, the iPhone 12 on iOS 15 is 6% points ahead of the iPhone 12 on iOS 14.8. So we're going to head back to Instagram for our second hour of looking at stories and posts. And 7 hours and 28 minutes into the test, the iPhone 11 on iOS 15 dies. And just a little while later, at 7 hours and 32 minutes in, the iPhone 11 on 14.8 dies next. And after the second full hour of Instagram, as you can see, the iPhone 12 is 5% points ahead on 15, then 14. So we'll head on over to Minecraft for our second hour, and we'll see how they fare. And 8 hours and 10 minutes into the test, the iPhone 12 on 14.8 dies. And once again, even though there's no other devices remaining, 30 minutes in, we'll stop interacting with the iPhone 12 on iOS 15 because the test was designed to accommodate if there were other devices still remaining. And surprisingly, 30 minutes after the iPhone 12 on iOS 14.8 dies, the iPhone 12 on iOS 15 finally dies. So it got 30 minutes of additional battery life time over iOS 14.8 in this test. Now, as always, there's a ton of factors that contribute to how your battery life is going to be, and of course, I can't control all of them. I do my best to, of course, but I definitely find that very interesting. And there you have it, guys, the final results of the battery drain test. So as you can see here, the difference is very small between these 2 iOS versions for the most part, which definitely bodes pretty well for iOS 15. And of course, as I said earlier, battery life does entirely depend on what you're doing on your device, so always keep that in mind. It, of course, will always vary. And you can see there, for the iPhone 8 and above, iOS 15 had slightly better battery. As you can see, all the numbers are just slightly higher for those devices. Again, not by much though, except for the iPhone 12, which again, as I said, has a bigger advantage. While the iPhone 6S and iPhone 7 were a little bit worse on iOS 15 in this example, for whatever reason. And lastly, we're going to do a 12-hour standby test. So this tests how well these devices are able to hold a charge while asleep. Now, once again, I know I'm repeating myself quite a lot. This depends on a whole host of factors, including notifications you're getting on your device, processes you might have running in the background, cell signal strength, and a whole host of other things. This is just a very controlled example in this test, with no SIM cards in any of these phones, and they're all connected to the same Wi-Fi network, and all these devices have the very same notification settings, as you could see. And alright, so let's go ahead and begin. We're going to turn off the power source that these devices are connected to in both tests, get rid of the power cables, and we'll put all the devices to sleep, and we'll just set a stopwatch going, and we'll let these devices sit for 12 hours, and we'll see how they fare. And alright, so 12 hours later, checking in, as you can see here, once again, very very similar results. Both did quite well, not losing very much battery percentage. So in conclusion, this test has shown iOS 15 to have pretty comparable battery life in comparison to iOS 14.8. And of course, it all depends on what you're doing on your device and a variety of other factors. But either way, if you guys are running iOS 15 or iOS 14, let me know down below in the comments section how the battery performance has been for you. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace out.